Hey guys, welcome to Roy Martial Jiu-Jitsu. I'm here at my school, Gracie Schwartzwald in Baden-Württemberg. I wanted to go over a little topic today, which I've had to talk to people about many years over teaching. Specifically, it's about training with everyone. I don't mean training with different schools or different affiliations. I mean training with everyone in your gym. So a question I'll get asked a lot, especially by white belts or newer people, is they'll say, well, I don't want to roll with the upper belts because I don't want to waste their time, or I don't want to train with them because I don't want to waste their time. I feel like I'm, it's not a good use of their time if I take up their time. And I always want to really shut that down as soon as possible. When you're training at every belt level, you should train with every belt level. You should train with every weight, every age, gender, everything. A saying that I really don't like in jiu-jitsu is, iron sharpens iron. Meaning, if I want to be the best, I'm only going to train with the best. One, that's a false assumption. Two, if you want to take that metaphor, a lot of things sharpen iron. Cloth sharpens iron, leather, everything. Depends what you're trying to get out of it. So with jiu-jitsu, for me, there's really three categories of guys I want to roll with. People who aren't as good as me, people who are pretty much comparable, and people who are much better. If you don't train with all three, you're going to be having an incomplete training experience. So I see a lot of guys, they say, well, I don't want to train with guys who are much better than me. The problem is, yes, you'll get good at very certain things, right? When I train with, some of my instructors who could just smash me, yeah, I had to really develop a really good guard, really good defense. But really, the only offense I mounted was kind of when they let me have offense. And if they weren't going to let me have it, I didn't get it. So if I only trained with those guys, I would be pretty good at, guard. But probably my top game would be really, really weak. Because even if I did manage to get top on them, I wasn't going to be able to explore it all. I was just going to basically be holding on for dear life. Or try to catch some submission, as quickly as possible. One reason I think I do have a very strong top game is because I've been teaching for so long and I've had so many white belts and blue belts to train with. And so, what I used them for was to develop that top game. Actually, to develop my whole game, but I would pass and get on top, and if they escaped, it wasn't a problem because I knew I could pass again whenever I wanted. Now, I wouldn't just smash them, but what I would do is I would play on top, and I would, I had the ease of mind to be able to sort of study the situation and explore and keep my eyes open versus if I'm training with, some of my really competitive partners coming up like Jack Jitsu from Jiu-Jitsu forums or Conrad or guys like that. Basically it was more of a fight situation where I was having to be really super focused on not losing position or making sure I don't screw up. So I didn't have the chance to kind of step back, look around, be very relaxed, be willing to make mistakes because I wasn't going to get punished for a mistake against a newer guy because I knew I could just correct out of that pretty easily. So I was able to play, try things, see, where to put my weight, see, when to underhook, when not to underhook, different controls, and kind of the same with defense, right? If you want to develop a good defense, if you haven't already, you start at white belt. You let them pass, you let them get the grips, you let them get position, and then, you can escape, so you can focus on escaping correctly. Whereas, if I'm rolling with, some of my really good friends, you may be panicking to escape. You may be pushing the action to try to get out of there because they have such a dominant position. Eventually, they're going to work into something, and rather than kind of be willing to make mistakes or having the vision to lay there and see the openings, you may be pushing the action harder than you really want to. And so, even like I said, with you roll with really good guys, you develop a good defense. It's kind of not. It's more, you're just going to lock down and really defend, and you're going to be really explosive in your escapes. So I see guys who train with really good guys, and their defense and their escapes are really kind of just explosive and in the moment rather than technically correct. The saying I say is they'll take the first escape, not necessarily the correct escape. Just because they're thinking, man, I got to get out of here. I got to get out of here right now. So any upper belt who says to a lower belt, like, yeah, I don't want to train with you, it's a waste of my time. To me, to some extent, that guy doesn't deserve his belt, because all the people that helped him get there, I assume, wasted their time with him or her getting to that point. So part of that, his job, his duty is to pass that along and take the time to, help the lower belts, as well as he's going to learn a ton of things, especially kind of a top game in my mind. And also that's how you learn new guards, right? I don't play a lot of spider guard. If I were to start playing spider guard today and I tried it against the average purple belt, he's just going to blow through that guard. So I'll get pretty frustrated pretty quickly and just throw it out the window. But if I said, okay, I'm going to start with, white belts, because, if they do pass the guard, that's okay. I'm going to escape pretty easily if I need to, and I go right back to it. I do have enough experience that they're not just going to blow through it. I can play with it. I can start to learn it. So those are the guys that you're going to be able to help. And also, again, with defense, right? That's huge, right? Let a white belt take your back. You can make pretty big mistakes. He's probably not going to exploit them. And you can start to play with things and see like how deep in the hole you could get before you can come out. So you go really deep, you get submitted, and the next time you go a little bit less deep until you find that line. And then you try with blue belts, purple belts, and on and on and up. So I think it's hugely important that you train with newer people. Plus, it gives them something, right? It's if they have a brown belt come over and say, hey, would you like to roll? And they don't just get demolished by the brown belt. The guy lets them work. He plays with them. They're going to feel much more comfortable at that academy and much more invested. And it's going to stick in their brain that later, as they get up, they're going to be able to turn back and do the same thing. Versus, don't get me wrong, there's times where as your journey, part of your job as a white belt is to get just completely smashed. There's no way around that. I was rolling with a newer guy the other day, and he's saying, I can't breathe, I can't deal with this. How do I deal with this? And I told him that's, unfortunately that's part of the journey, is you've got to start, you'll learn how to get into positions where you're not going to carry the weight, but part of it is you just got to deal with getting, crushed, submitted. All these things as part of the journey, and especially at white belt. It never goes away, but especially at white belt. But, there's also the idea of, training with an upper belt and seeing that, he's going to let you work. He's going to get something out of the roll, not just a chance to beat somebody down, but he's experimenting too. So maybe that reinforces your mind that, when I train, I should be experimenting. I should be exploring. And then you should train with guys also like comparable level. And you'll have those guys if you come up in jiu-jitsu. There's always your training partners that come up with you. And those are really good chances to kind of put your A game to the test, especially if they know you. That's when it gets really, depending on your worldview, fun or boring. For me, it's always fun. Like they know what I'm good at. They really can focus on shutting it down preemptively. So I have to get really laser sharp on being able to impose my game or, take them to positions outside their game. It kind of becomes a meta battle. I always joke about, I had a friend of mine, Al. He was a kind of exact opposite of me. Tall, we were both brown belts, I think, at the time. Tall, loved to pass from the outside, loved spider guard. Where I'm exactly opposite. I like to be very close, play butterfly guard. I'm not tall. And what it came down to wasn't so much whose technique was better. It was who could set the battle, who could decide which battle we were fighting, his battle or my battle. And that really taught me a lot about sort of, strategy versus just in the moment tactics. So a lot of what I do when I train is I always try to investigate my opponent first before we even roll, and then as we roll. What is it he likes to do? What positions is he trying to get to? What are the threats he gives me? What are his weaknesses? Versus just me like Kimura, me trying to rip Kimura. So that's something that you can really, I think, get a ton out of. Now, again, you're not going to be able to kind of relax and experiment necessarily. Don't get me wrong, there's some guys. I had a friend of mine, Jason Wingate, we would have very kind of flow roll kind of things where we just move through a lot of positions. Ego wasn't really tied up in it, and you'll definitely have those training partners too. But it was still very competitive. And then, of course, the last is, what most people think they want, which is just, world champion black belt to smash me every day. And that, has its place because, if you have weaknesses in your guard, if you have weaknesses in your defense, you're definitely going to get it pointed out and exploited to you. I remember one time rolling with my instructor, Jason Colbreth, and we'd been going at it for like 20 minute straight roll, super hard. And I felt really good. I wasn't making any mistakes. Everything was on point. And I remember just making this one mistake, like my elbow was out of place or something, I don't remember. And I actually remember in my head thinking, man, I hope he doesn't see this. And right as that thought was getting in my head, he caught it, right? It was just literally just like a half-second mistake. But he's good enough that he was able to see it, feel it, and exploit it right away. And you won't get that from necessarily the guys kind of at your level or new people. So there is that training that you want. But your goal is to help everybody at the academy, and your goal is to learn from everybody at the academy. And if you can't or you aren't, that's on you. That's not on anybody else. So take that brand new person. If you're an upper belt, train with them, roll with them. See what you can learn. Also, because rolling with new people, I'm going to do a video about this later, but something that I think a huge fallacy in jiu-jitsu is people will say, well, I only need to train for really good trained guys. I don't have to worry about untrained guys. And that's completely a fallacy, right? Because the trained good guy is not just a better version of the untrained guy. Okay? Often they're using completely different tools, right? So whereas, from a purely, fight perspective of what I'll talk about later, it's, if you're trying to pass a really good black belt's guard, open guard, what's he going to be doing? He's going to be trying to get grips, maybe daily heave, spider, things like that. An untrained guy who walks in off the street, he's going to try to kick you in the face and stand up. Those are two different, very two different realities. So if you're focused on all the time about like getting my grips, making sure my posture is right, it's not going to help you against a boot in the face, unless you're training to deal with that boot in the face. So it's not that it's a better version of something. It's two guys who are doing two different tools. Now, obviously, if you train really good grapplers, you're used to learning how to control people. You'll be able to adjust to an extent. But again, it is just because you could escape a triangle, if you don't train to defend a punch, it doesn't mean, I can also defend a punch because I escaped this really good brown belt triangle. There's two very different realities. So what I'm saying is, if you take a guy who's a brand new white belt, and I've seen this before, guys who can hold down purple belts from mount, who get thrown off mount from a white belt. Why is that? Because the purple belt, he's spending all his time maybe trying to do a knee elbow escape or switch like a deep half guard escape, or he's trying to do all these little technical escapes. Whereas a strong white belt just grabs you and throws you off. So if all your mount has kind of been this very quick reactive light kind of mount, because you're anticipating his movement of the purple belt, and then someone just comes in and mongos you off of them, and you haven't trained to like hold a tight, heavy mount against a really strong guy, then yeah, that untrained guy is giving you a different experience and a valuable experience versus just, I'm only going to train with guys who are going to do these technical escapes. So, it allows me to train against the guy who's just super strong, who's trying to sling me off, as well as the guy who's got a really slick, knee elbow escape and everything in between. So, if you really want to improve your training, grab everybody. Train with women as much as possible. Almost every single woman I've trained with back in the U.S., here as well, but the ones in the U.S. and North Carolina, where a lot of them were very high ranked, were all really super technical because they have to be. They can, by and large, they can't rely on strength to get them out of problems. So they've always gotten themselves in bad positions and had to escape technically, as well as sometimes body mechanics are different. Being able to pin a big guy in a certain way, it might not necessarily work as well against a woman who's got different mobilities. I train with I had trained with young kids. When I say young, 13, 14, 15, super flexible kids. That can be tough to hold down, and then of course just trying to hold some of the polar bears down, like Brian Sully, one of my students back home. It's a whole different thing. So in general, what you're going to focus on with jiu-jitsu is guard, passing guard, submission, submission escape, pins, escaping pins. And so, you want to be able to be good at both sides of those, and you want to put yourself in a position where you train with people where you can experiment on both sides of those, where you can be tested on both sides of those, and where you can be completely crushed on both sides of those. So hope this video helps, and make sure not to be that guy who thinks he's too good to train with other people or only wants to train with world champions. All right, thanks.